Have you ever felt that gut-wrenching dread before opening your banking app? Ryan certainly did, bracing himself like a horror film viewer. His screen revealed a meager $387, with payday still 4 agonizing days away. Just this morning, his check engine light flared up, his friends invited him out for Friday, and his phone bill was due to autopay tomorrow. It wasn't that Ryan was reckless with his finances or lacked responsibility. He simply never seemed to possess enough funds. Fast forward 6 months, and Ryan would be opening that very same app, completely devoid of any flinching, mental calculations, or financial anxiety. This transformation wasn't due to a promotion, a new side gig, or some viral budgeting trick he'd picked up online. Instead, it was a solitary figure, $10,000, comfortably nestled within his savings account. This sum did more than just inflate his bank balance. It fundamentally reshaped his entire decision-making process. Let's explore exactly why accumulating your initial $10,000 can be a complete game changer. But first, let's delve into the stark reality of Ryan's financial situation right now. Earning $45,000 annually, his take-home pay, after deductions for taxes, health insurance, and 401k, totaled roughly $2,900 each month. His rent alone consumed $1,200, while his car payment and insurance added another $450 to his monthly outgoings. Then came essential costs like his phone, utilities, groceries, and gas, tallying up to approximately $800 extra. This left him with a mere $450 of financial leeway, which needed to cover everything else: personal care, clothing, social outings, and any unexpected costs. So, when the check engine light illuminates, Ryan's concern isn't the car's malfunction, but the critical state of his bank balance. A $600 repair isn't just about fixing the vehicle. It forces him to decide which other essential payment. The $600 car repair isn't merely about fixing the vehicle. It means facing the difficult choice of which other essential bills must be paid late this month. This financial squeeze often forces him to decline social invitations, adding a layer of isolation to his struggles. He'll find himself texting friends, "I can't make it Friday," fabricating an excuse about being busy rather than revealing his financial constraints. For the next couple of weeks, his meals will be strictly limited to whatever he already has stored in the freezer. This persistent state of financial strain and anxiety is precisely what psychologists identify as survival mode. It's a condition that has no bearing on a person's intelligence or the amount of effort they put into their work. When the brain operates without any financial buffer, every single decision becomes scrutinized through one overarching question. That critical question constantly echoes: can I genuinely afford this without jeopardizing something else important? This query cycles through his mind relentlessly, forming a continuous, inescapable loop. It emerges at the grocery store, at the gas pump, and even in casual social situations. For example, when a friend suggests splitting an Uber to avoid waiting for the bus, that question immediately springs to mind. Dozens of times a day, his brain is occupied with this survival math, preventing him from focusing on anything else. What makes this situation even more challenging is that survival mode doesn't just empty his wallet. It significantly impairs his decision-making abilities. He's often forced to accept the very first job offer available, simply because he cannot afford the luxury of waiting for a better opportunity to arise. These aren't necessarily poor choices, but rather the only viable ones. For example, he remains in a terrible apartment because a new deposit would wipe him out, and he skips career-advancing events due to the cost. The previous discussion detailed how survival mode makes one make difficult choices. This isn't about making inherently bad decisions. Rather, they are often the only viable options available. When faced with extremely limited funds, such as having only a few $100s, choices are severely restricted. One must simply pick from what little is presented. This leads to a crucial question. Why is the specific figure of $10,000 frequently cited as a financial milestone? Why not a different, rounder amount? The significance of $10,000 lies in its ability to transform common financial setbacks. At this level, many typical disasters cease to be catastrophic events. Consider, for instance, an unexpected car repair. These unforeseen costs typically range from $500 to $2,500, a significant sum for most. Medical emergencies also present substantial financial burdens. An urgent care visit can cost hundreds, while an emergency room trip, even without surgery, can quickly reach several $1,000s. Another major disruption is sudden job loss. Having $10,000 in savings can provide roughly 3 to 4 months of essential living expenses. This financial cushion grants an individual like Ryan the necessary time to seek new employment thoughtfully. It allows for a selective job search instead of a desperate one. Without this $10,000 buffer, any one of these incidents can rapidly escalate into a full-blown crisis. A $1,200 car repair, for example, might go straight onto a high-interest credit card. With an annual interest rate of 24%, that initial $1,200 debt could easily swell to $1,400 or more by the time it's finally repaid. The burden of such debt often triggers a cascade of further financial issues. The stress can lead to missed payments elsewhere, incurring additional late fees. These accumulating charges then compound the original debt, trapping one in a cycle of increasing financial strain. A single expense spirals into a larger mess. Essentially, one unforeseen cost can plunge an individual into several months of severe financial instability and disarray. However, with $10,000 in savings, that same $1,200 car repair becomes a minor inconvenience. One pays it, their savings dip to $8,800, and they gradually replenish it. The outcome of the exact same event is dramatically different, marking a crucial financial turning point. This threshold transforms one's financial life from a constant struggle to a manageable situation. This marks a critical turning point where your financial existence transitions from merely reacting to emergencies to a state where you can actually plan ahead. No longer are you playing a constant game of whack-a-mole against unexpected financial crises. What's truly fascinating is that the most significant shift observed at the $10,000 savings mark isn't purely financial. Instead, it represents a profound neurological transformation within an individual. When Ryan had only $387 in his bank account, his mind was perpetually engaged in a hidden process of calculation, worry, and threat detection. This constant background activity consumed a considerable amount of his mental capacity. Researchers have termed this phenomenon the bandwidth tax, describing the immense mental strain of living with financial scarcity. This mental burden explains why individuals under financial stress often perform poorly on decision-making tasks, experience disturbed sleep, and report higher anxiety levels. It's not that these individuals are inherently less capable or intelligent than others. Their brains are simply preoccupied with complex financial survival calculations, while others are free to focus on different aspects of life. Once Ryan's savings surpassed $10,000, that persistent background mental program began to gradually deactivate. This wasn't because his problems vanished, but because his brain finally acknowledged a protective buffer between him and potential financial disaster. The positive repercussions of this internal shift started appearing in surprisingly mundane, unexpected places. One of the very first locations where people report noticing this change is, remarkably, the grocery store. Walking into the supermarket, Ryan found himself, for the first time in years, considering what he genuinely desired to eat, rather than just what he could afford. His mind, previously consumed by constant financial survival calculations, was finally free to engage with other aspects of life. Surpassing the $10,000 mark marked the beginning of this underlying mental stress program deactivating. His challenges hadn't vanished, but his mind finally acknowledged a vital financial cushion protecting him from potential ruin. This internal shift manifested in various unexpected aspects of his daily routine, moving beyond just the grocery store. Instead of performing constant mental arithmetic in the cereal aisle, he was simply engaging in the act of shopping without financial anxiety. This newfound sense of liberation, experienced in everyday choices from the gas pump to coffee runs, accumulated into a significant release of mental energy. This mental freedom allowed him to redirect focus from mere financial survival towards more productive or enjoyable pursuits. Beyond practical relief, a second, more profound transformation began, a subtle yet potent shift in his self-perception. Prior to reaching this milestone, Ryan viewed himself as financially inept, a belief constantly reinforced by his dwindling bank balance. Once his savings hit $10,000, his perspective dramatically altered. He now identified as someone capable of accumulating significant funds. This seemingly minor change deeply influenced his future financial choices. He wasn't just trying to save, he was a saver. This ingrained identity guided decisions, from small indulgences like an extra drink to larger ones like financing a purchase versus paying cash. His initial financial accumulation fostered new habits, which, in turn, began safeguarding his wealth. A third significant change emerged. His ingrained threat detection mechanism began to transform into an opportunity-seeking mindset. While in survival mode, every unforeseen occurrence, like a car breakdown or rent increase, was immediately perceived as a looming catastrophe. Even a friend starting a business, even a friend's new business venture, seeking a modest investment, wouldn't have registered as an option, as his mind was solely focused on evading financial pitfalls. However, with a substantial $10,000 now secured in his account, Ryan's cognitive processes began to evaluate situations from an entirely fresh perspective. He learned of a $2,000 certification program that promised to increase his annual income by $8,000. Previously, such an expenditure would have been utterly unfeasible for him. Now, he saw it as a strategic investment, one that would pay for itself within a mere 4 months. Then, a more desirable apartment became available, conveniently located closer to his workplace, potentially saving him 40 minutes of travel time each way. Yet, securing this improved living situation required a $2,400 deposit. In the past, he would have simply dismissed it without a second thought. But now, he meticulously calculated the financial implications and benefits. These prospects had always existed, but Ryan's prior state of constant survival had clouded his ability to recognize them. Moving forward, let's examine the profound impact this $10,000 had on Ryan's professional trajectory, a facet often overlooked. With no savings to fall back on, Ryan felt completely confined to his current employment, regardless of its conditions. He endured unreasonable demands, toxic colleagues, and soul-crushing tasks, knowing that leaving meant risking his next month's rent. Such pervasive desperation influenced every aspect of his professional life, preventing him from requesting raises due to fear of upsetting the status quo. He wouldn't dare challenge undesirable tasks, as his critical need for employment outweighed any other consideration. This crucial sum of $10,000 completely altered the balance of power in Ryan's professional life. Suddenly, he possessed what I term walking away money, a financial safety net previously unimaginable. This meant he could potentially leave his job tomorrow and comfortably cover his expenses for 3 to 4 months. Such a buffer provided ample time to seek out and secure a more fulfilling employment opportunity. Although he might not actually resign, the mere awareness of this option profoundly changed his attitude at work. He now had the courage to ask for a raise, knowing that even a rejection wouldn't destabilize his financial situation. Furthermore, he felt empowered to push back when his manager attempted to assign a demanding weekend project late on a Friday afternoon. He also started attending job interviews across town without fear, not out of desperation, but purely to explore new possibilities. This shift from a desperate mindset to one of exploration was a significant turning point in his career trajectory. It might sound almost too convenient, but when you stop operating from a place of desperation, others perceive you differently. Ryan began carrying himself with increased confidence, speaking up during meetings, and choosing projects based on genuine interest. He was no longer compelled to accept tasks solely because he feared the repercussions of saying no. This remarkable transformation in his demeanor and approach did not go unnoticed by his colleagues and superiors. Consequently, he started receiving more desirable assignments, earning greater recognition, and, quite often, an increase in his earnings. The interesting irony is that Ryan probably never actually needed to spend this walking away money. Its power lay simply in its existence as a protective force field. Now, let's delve into the numbers, as the calculations truly reveal why $10,000 is a crucial turning point, not just a modest achievement. Imagine Ryan consistently sets aside $500 monthly, channeling these funds into a broad market index fund yielding an average 8% annually. To accumulate his initial $10,000, Ryan dedicated approximately 19 months of unwavering commitment. This period demanded significant discipline, personal sacrifices, and the difficult choice to forego many desired expenses. There's no denying that this initial phase was incredibly challenging, with no easy path or quick fixes available. However, the journey to his second $10,000 proved to be noticeably quicker than the first. Instead of another 19 months, he hit this milestone in roughly 16, despite maintaining the same income and contribution. This reduction in timeline, a saving of 3 months, occurred because his initial $10,000 had begun to contribute actively. It was now generating its own returns, silently compounding and expanding the total sum without requiring any additional effort from Ryan. This pattern of acceleration continued. The more capital he amassed, the more rapidly his wealth grew. Once his total investments reached $100,000, they were independently producing around $8,000 each year. It was akin to having an invisible colleague who regularly deposited money into his account, requiring no direct labor from him. This exponential growth curve is a concept rarely demonstrated to individuals starting their financial journey from scratch. The initial stages of this process are notoriously slow and often feel excruciatingly arduous. Consider this alternative perspective. Ryan's current car payment amounts to $450 each month, directed towards an asset that steadily loses its value. Had he chosen a dependable used vehicle, investing that same $450 monthly sum would have accumulated $10,000 in savings within approximately 20 months. Projected over a decade, consistently investing that $450 each month would see the total grow to exceed $80,000. Meanwhile, the car he presently drives would likely be valued at only about $6,000 at that point. This isn't a judgment on car ownership, but rather a simple illustration of how finances diverge when allocated differently. Upon reaching the $10,000 investment milestone, Ryan began to discover opportunities he previously hadn't even imagined existed. Soon after, a friend approached him about a new landscaping venture, seeking a $3,000 investment in exchange for a percentage of the future profits. Just half a year prior, Ryan's response would have been a dismissive, "Sounds good, best of luck," before moving on without a second thought. However, with his newfound financial footing, he could seriously contemplate this proposition. While not risking his emergency savings, he could now assess it as a genuine investment, no longer dismissing it as not meant for him. Concurrently, a recruiter contacted him with a job offer, promising an extra $12,000 annually, yet requiring relocation to a new city. This significant salary increase came with the condition of relocation, a prospect he could now genuinely consider. These distinct opportunities, previously out of reach, emerged solely because his financial situation had transformed. Having even a modest sum of capital had opened doors that were previously invisible to him. Ryan now faced decisions that would further shape his path, empowered by his growing resources. As his financial situation solidified, specific opportunities began to emerge, ones he previously hadn't even known existed. For instance, a friend proposed that Ryan invest $3,000 in a new landscaping business in exchange for a share of its future profits. Only 6 months prior, Ryan would have simply wished his friend well and moved on, but now, he could thoughtfully evaluate the proposition. While he wouldn't deplete his emergency savings, he could now assess it as a legitimate investment, rather than dismissing it as unattainable for someone like him. That recruiter's offer, requiring a move to a new city, entailed substantial upfront expenses for relocation and housing deposits. These initial costs, ranging from $4,000 to $5,000, would have rendered the opportunity impossible to pursue without any savings whatsoever. However, with $10,000 in his account, Ryan could now realistically calculate whether the long-term financial benefits justified the move. Additionally, his company presented an opportunity for tuition reimbursement for a specific certification, which would qualify him for a more senior position. The catch was an $1,800 upfront payment, with reimbursement only occurring after successfully passing the qualification exam. Prior to reaching his $10,000 milestone, this initial outlay would have been impossible, but now it seemed an obvious, simple decision. He was effectively securing an $8,000 annual raise for a temporary $1,800 expense, knowing he would recover the initial payment. This series of events perfectly illustrated the common adage that money goes to money, a concept often misunderstood. It wasn't some grand conspiracy, but a simple truth. Possessing financial resources naturally opens up more avenues for growth. Capital provides options. Options grant access to various opportunities, and it is through these opportunities that true wealth is actually built. While many people stumble at this point, Ryan, upon reaching $10,000, felt a profound shift, a surge of relief and newfound confidence. Having financial capital doesn't just sit there. It provides options, which then open doors to valuable opportunities. These opportunities are the genuine mechanisms through which true wealth is actually accumulated and expanded. Imagine two individuals looking at the exact same promising venture, one with no savings and the other with $10,000. Only the person with the initial capital possesses the ability to realistically pursue and capitalize on that very same opportunity. This crucial turning point is precisely where the vast majority of people typically make a significant error. Upon hitting his $10,000 target, Ryan experienced a profound sense of relief and a surge of self-assurance. For the first time in his adult life, his bank account was no longer a constant source of stress or anxiety. As his mind finally felt safe, it instinctively sought to celebrate, whispering, "I've earned this. I truly deserve a reward." This internal justification often continued. "I've been so disciplined. Surely one small indulgence won't cause any harm." Such an indulgence commonly manifests as a new car, an expensive vacation, a wardrobe upgrade, or a general lifestyle bump that inflates monthly expenses. Consequently, the initial $10,000 quickly vanishes, not all at once, but through a gradual, almost imperceptible erosion. It disappears in smaller amounts. $1,200 here, $800 there, a new subscription, or the added cost of a slightly more expensive apartment. Within 6 months, if spent, Ryan would typically be back to nervously checking his bank balance, having completely reset his hard-earned progress to zero. 6 months later, the familiar check engine light illuminated on Ryan's dashboard again, bringing the same sinking feeling in his stomach. But this time, it lasted only a couple of seconds before he remembered. He was no longer that old Ryan, and his bank app showed a number with 5. The initial sum wasn't just a number. It was the bedrock for everything else Ryan had constructed. Squandering it would mean forfeiting not only the money, but also its potential for compounded growth. He would also lose the professional assurance it instilled, the doors it could have opened, and the fundamental shift in his self-perception. This meant erasing 19 months of dedicated effort, forcing him back to square one to restart the most arduous part of his journey. The familiar warning light reappeared on his dashboard, bringing with it a fleeting moment of that old, sinking dread. But the feeling dissolved almost instantly as he remembered his transformation. He wasn't the person he used to be. Opening his banking application, Ryan saw a balance displaying a figure with 5 significant digits. He calmly contacted his mechanic, arranging a service appointment for Saturday morning without a second thought. With that taken care of, he simply returned to his previous activity, his composure undisturbed. He wasn't wealthy, nor had he reached financial independence, still mindful of grocery prices and dining out decisions. Yet, the pervasive panic, the constant mental calculations for survival, had completely vanished from his life. The incessant hum of financial anxiety that once dominated his every waking moment was finally silent. The initial sum was crucial, but Ryan's greatest achievement over those 19 months wasn't merely the money itself. It was the stronger version of himself he had forged, the discipline, the beneficial routines, and the identity of a person who masters their finances. If your bank account currently resembles Ryan's initial $387, understand that this is only the beginning of your journey, not its inevitable conclusion.